Spoilers! Not just for Moon Knight, but my lack of nods on comic Moon Knight. I personally always had this vendetta behind the arguments of movies not being comic accurate simply because they alone should be categorized in two separate continuities. But I think just my distaste towards the argument of book versus movie or TV show has really discouraged me from reading comic books as a whole. So with that out of the way, Moon Knight has been amazing so far. I say so far because by the time I'm recording this show, it isn't finished. I just really need to suck off the show as quickly as possible. I was really hooked into the show from the very first episode, which isn't something that happens often for me with comic book TV shows. It normally takes me a couple episodes to really invest in a show, except WandaVision, which is the exact opposite that had me until the very end. The first episode great because from the beginning it establishes and focuses solely on what the entire show wants to be, Steven's identity.
Honestly, my body wants to get up and wander about. You know, like it has to get the 10,000 steps in.
Seeing him living his day-to-day life, only to raise the mystery on what happens to Steven at night, is structured very well. It's made abundantly clear that whatever was happening to Steven during the night is the reason why we see him as a total shunner at the beginning. Also, I love how he just casually brings up that he has to wear ankle bracelets to a Metal Man because it's a normal act for him, making the mystery for the audience even better. We get to see his daily life and get invested in his character, and Spice for us is a part of Steven's daily routine that we've already been a part of. Also, yes, I did use night for spelling night in my script because I'm hilarious.
When you bring me out, can you introduce me as Joker?
The transition from this grounded journey of Steven's life to the mythical mystery behind the Moon Knight, then going on to the rest of the main plot, is a very smooth segue from episode to episode. The slow discovery of Steven fully understanding who his other personality is done within the first two episodes, but once they're done with that, they move on into not only the plot behind the main antagonist, but it mainly focuses on Steven and Mark understanding each other as individuals with their own separate lives. And I love the fact that the show focuses strictly on that and the main antagonist is completely secondary. Hell, most of the main plot with Hero and the Egyptian gods is secondary. The show knows exactly what it wants to be and what it wants to focus on, and I personally love it. Because while obviously we need to have Steven and Mark have external conflicts with Hero, the show is mainly about the internal conflicts about understanding himself and Mark, because Moon Knight is expressing a split personality disorder while using the superhero formula as a medium. And it's not in your face about this idea either until episode 4, but it lets the audience understand this concept for themselves. And while episodes 4 and 5 are more in your face about it, it's more so because they might as well at that point, because the audience by now should have figured that concept out by now. Unless you turn your brain off for the purpose of watching colorful superhero fights, but if that's the case, why even watching Moon Knight? The show really has a very grounded atmosphere to it that feels more like a Egyptian mythology than a superhero TV show, because it uses Egyptian and Aztecian history not only as the core aspects of the world around Moon Knight, but it also uses it to heighten Steven and Mark's character, with Mark doing the bidding of Egyptian god and with Steven being absolutely fascinated with Egyptian culture. I love how he freaks out at any piece of historical importance from the beginning to end, from when he accurately describes something in the gift shop he worked in, to completely shitting himself when he's in the pyramid with Layla. Seriously, he even apologized to Alexander the Great skeleton as he's pulling out the funny ball.
I mean, I had to go digging down old Alexander the Great skullet, but I found it.
Also, yes, I don't know what it's actually called because I paid almost no attention to the main plot of the series, so I thought it would just be funny if I call it a funny ball. Yeah, Moon Knight is weird to talk about when reviewing it because while his character writing with Steven is astounding, like I said, the plot is very secondary in this show. I really can't even tell you what the main plot is prior to episode 4 and 5. The most I know is that Hero wants to manipulate people into doing bad, and he manipulates the god into believing he's innocent. And he does a couple bad things. And I don't know, I didn't think I'd get this far. The show really prioritizes Steven and Mark understanding each other and Steven figure out his own identity. I genuinely appreciate that's what their focus is, but Harold's motivations hardly tie into that plotline outside manipulating tactics to get what he wants. Which brings me into the Herald trial, and yeah, the gods are very stupid in this trial. While it makes sense that they can't trust Achto due to personal conflicts with him, along with Mark being mentally unwell and a reasonably unfit vessel for Achto, they really had no resistance to instantly trust Hero. They could have easily stretched this scene into Achto pointing out Hero's tattoos and cane, only for him to manipulate the gods to why he's innocent. It would have made him seem as a more competent threat instead of making the gods look like idiots. Because Hero played the insanity card on Mark, and the gods thought they had no choice but to let him go, without considering actual evidence behind him. Another very great area with this show is Layla. I think that she alone is a good character that plays very well with Mark and Steven. But man, why did they have to add this stupid love triangle with her, Mark and Layla? And it's not that Steven being attracted to Layla is out of character, because let's face it, he's a total horn dog. All introverts are. But my main issue with this is that it has next to no plot relevance and does nothing to substantially drive the relationship with Steven and Mark closer together or further apart. It's brought up like a couple of times, but it's more so played for laughs and goes nowhere past that episode. You think it would be brought up in episode 5 where coming to terms with each other is extremely vital to the main conflict of the episode, but no. Steven kissed the love of Mark's life, and that conflict is gone after that episode. Although the writer could have just wanted to forget what was there, like how JJ wanted to forget the entirety of The Last Jedi when making Rise of Prophet Walker. Okay, so I know I have been talking very negatively about the show for a good portion of the video, contradicting how I completely sucked off Moon Knight at the beginning, but you also had to figure it out by a title that this show's writing is most commendable when looking at Steven and Mark.
Fish.
Which is why the show focuses strictly on development and the relationship with these two. While the amount of effort put into this character is exceptional and is handled damn near perfectly, it doesn't excuse how the rest of the plot is written. But as I said for the 11th time, the writers were aware of this ahead of time and have taken almost no focus away from them from the entire series. And that's why episode 5 is by far my favorite episode in the show. Episode 5 in its entirety focuses on exclusively Steven and Mark. The main conflict of the episode is that in order to escape what I assume is limbo, they must balance the metaphorical scales of truth and justice.
And only the worthiest would be allowed to pass through the field of reeds.
Justice obviously resembles Mark, and his cascade is served for Achto to bring order, and truth resembles Steven with his kind and honest personality. If they don't understand what's causing an imbalance between them resolve their internal conflict, it will be impossible to resolve their external conflicts, further exemplifying that Steven and Mark are the main focus of the series. This episode gets genuinely dark and tragic very quickly, and this mature storytelling fits so well with what the message of the show is trying to tell. We learn more on Mark's duty as an avatar to Achto, and the tragic truth behind him murdering all of those people.
And you remember each person.
You tried taking a life. See how quickly you forget.
We learn that Mark's mother was excessively nasty towards him because she actively blames him for his brother dying. Him, a literal child, and it's a constant thing that happened up until her own passing, to which Mark couldn't even attend her funeral for his father's sake. Which brings me to the darkest point about this episode.
Bloody hell. Look at the state of this place.
Steven isn't real. It turns out that the entire time, Steven was the split personality that Mark created to run away from his mother. His name even comes from Mark's favorite movie, Steven Grant Shows No Fear. It was genuinely sad for Steven to find out that his existence was a lie. Mark tried to rationalize this by saying that he had a happy life and believed that his mother was kind. He wasn't forced to kill anyone to appease the gods that saved him, but it didn't matter to Steven. And Mark couldn't understand that his life wasn't normal. He believed that his mother was alive long after her passing. He couldn't live his life because Mark created this happy-go-lucky mentality. Steven couldn't get a girlfriend, have a stable schedule, always wake up at different places. It may not have been as brutal as Mark's life, but it was far from a life worth living. And despite that, Steven couldn't help but feel bad for Mark after learning more about his life. How his only chance of survival was to be a god's puppet. That he had his own mother abuse him and disown him as a child for something that wasn't his fault. And it haunts him to this day. Steven's sacrifice is completely warranted and is sadly the resolution of this episode. Because the sad truth is that Steven was the imbalance. Despite their efforts to balance the scales themselves, it took Steven's death for true balance to occur. Because Mark couldn't be true to himself because he made Steven up. And Steven couldn't be truthful because he was forced to live a lie. Just a shell for Mark to run away from his problems as a child. As much as I hate to see Steven be killed off at the end of the episode, because I genuinely adore this character and his personality more than Mark's, I cannot in good conscience insult this episode for its writing because it is astounding. It expertly explores the show's messages behind identity and truth while handling split personality sort of beautifully. Or at least I think. I'm not at all qualified to really accurately criticize how the show handles this disorder.
Well, use the forget-me stick. Oh, right.
I genuinely feel like this should be the show's finale, while obviously having to write around the external conflict, because it resolves and concludes the main points of the show that really the only thing left to do is defeat Hero and grieve over Steven's death. Hopefully the finale doesn't do the episode conclusion injustice and find some way to bring Steven back, because it will really destroy the importance behind this ending. Along with the show's beautiful cinematography, world building, and its attention to Egyptian culture, it has some of the best character writing I've ever seen. Period. Even though you have to endure some of the more mediocre parts about the main plot, I cannot express how much I'm hoping for this finale to not follow the MCU TV show formula and completely disregard the great parts about the show, because I have genuinely fallen in love with a superhero I have never properly known. Thank you all so much for watching. This show definitely had me do some rescheduling of my videos because of how much I absolutely love the character writing in Moon Knight. I plan on doing a short follow-up video later on when I properly watch the finale, but that's all I have for now. I hope you guys enjoyed, and be sure to comment your thoughts on Moon Knight or my critique of it. Be subscribe and hit the little notification bell to get notified of future content releases. It helps out the channel a lot, it's free, and you can always subscribe later. I'm Favorite Cowboy, signing off.